There is a moment in every person's life when the noise of the world becomes unbearable, when the crowds and the chatter no longer offer comfort but only distraction. This is where the choice reveals itself: to walk the path others walk, or to step into the quiet unknown, alone. The story I want to share with you today is about a man who chose the latter. A man who embraced solitude not as a punishment, but as a powerful ally. He was a warrior, a thinker, a master of his craft, and his name echoes through time: Musashi. Why did he walk alone? What did solitude give him that the company of others could not? And what lessons can we learn when we dare to stand apart in a world that fears being alone? Musashi's life was not shaped by comfort or ease. He was born into chaos, trained in the art of war from an early age, and his path was carved by battles, both external and internal. But beyond his skill with the sword, what set him apart was his understanding of solitude. He saw loneliness not as emptiness, but as a space where the mind sharpens, where distractions fall away, and where true mastery begins. To walk alone meant freedom from distraction, freedom to focus on the self, the craft, and the unending pursuit of perfection. When most people fear solitude, Musashi sought it out. It was in isolation that he discovered the truth of his own spirit. The world around him was unpredictable, filled with deceit, fear, and the fleeting nature of fame. But in solitude, there was clarity. The clarity to reflect deeply, to understand his weaknesses, and to cultivate strength beyond mere physical skill. In the silence, he confronted himself honestly, without the masks others expect us to wear. This brutal self-awareness, birthed from solitude, forged a warrior not only of battle, but of life itself. Musashi's journey teaches us that solitude is not a void to be feared, but a crucible for growth. When you walk alone, you are forced to face your own thoughts, your fears, and your ambitions without distraction or blame. It is in those moments of solitude that you can hear your true voice, the one drowned out by the chaos of everyday life. To choose solitude is to choose responsibility for your own growth, your own destiny. It is a decision to sharpen your mind and spirit, much like the sword that must be forged in the fire and hammered on the anvil. This is why Musashi walked alone. Not because he was lonely, but because he understood the power of being alone, to become something greater than the sum of distractions, expectations, and social noise. His life was a testament to the strength that comes from self-reliance and deep reflection. And today, as we navigate a world more connected yet more distracted than ever, his example is a call to us all, to embrace solitude not as isolation, but as an opportunity to become the strongest version of ourselves. To truly understand why Musashi chose solitude, we must first understand the nature of mastery. Mastery is not something that can be rushed or borrowed from others. It demands relentless focus, sacrifice, and above all, the willingness to stand apart. When you are surrounded by others, your attention is pulled in countless directions: opinions, judgments, distractions. Musashi recognized that to become a master of his art, he needed a space untouched by the noise of society. Solitude became his training ground, a place where he could confront his limitations and refine his skills without compromise. Think about it. How often do we settle for the comfort of familiar voices and easy answers, rather than seeking the hard truths that solitude reveals? Musashi walked a path few dared to tread because he knew that true strength comes from within. The sword is an extension of the self, and the self must be clear and unshakable before it can wield any weapon with precision. This clarity is born in silence, in moments where no one is watching, no one is distracting, and the only voice you hear is your own, honest, sometimes harsh, but always real. Musashi's solitude was not loneliness. It was a choice to honor his journey. In choosing to walk alone, he created space for his mind to grow sharper than any blade. He would spend hours meditating on strategy, life, and the nature of conflict, not just with others, but within himself. This inner conflict is often the fiercest battle we face. It is the struggle between fear and courage, doubt and certainty, weakness and strength. By embracing solitude, Musashi gave himself the chance to wrestle with these demons, to understand them, and ultimately to rise above them. This is the lesson he offers us today. The path to greatness demands solitude. It demands that we step away from the crowd and look inward, because in the silence we find not emptiness, but a wellspring of power and insight. Solitude sharpens the mind like the whetstone sharpens the sword. It is not a punishment for the isolated, but a privilege for those who dare to grow beyond their current selves. Solitude also gave Musashi the freedom to forge his own way, unbound by the expectations and rules imposed by others. In his time, the world of the samurai was rigid, filled with strict codes and traditions. Many followed the path laid out for them by their families, clans, or masters. But Musashi understood that true mastery could not be confined to tradition alone. It demanded innovation, observation, and above all, independence of thought. By walking alone, he freed himself from the chains of conformity. He was no one's disciple but his own, answering only to his own sense of discipline and purpose. When you stand alone, you learn to trust yourself in ways impossible in a crowd. You become your own judge, your own teacher, your own fiercest critic. This self-reliance is not arrogance. It is the humility born from knowing that no one else will fight your battles for you. Musashi's solitude was a quiet rebellion against dependence. He knew that to face the unpredictable chaos of life, he must become a fortress within himself. Only then could he move with the fluidity of water, strike with the precision of the blade, and endure without falter. It is tempting to think that solitude means weakness, that a person alone is vulnerable. But Musashi showed us the opposite. To walk alone is to build a resilience that no crowd can provide. It is to be strong enough to stand firm when all else crumbles. Solitude for him was a training ground not just for combat but for life. A way to understand that the greatest battles are fought within, and the greatest victories come when you are prepared to face yourself honestly and without excuses. And so, Musashi's life becomes a mirror for our own struggles. In a world that often praises connection and constant presence, he reminds us that there is immense power in stepping back, in standing apart, and in walking alone. Because in solitude, you meet your truest self, and from that meeting, a warrior is born. Musashi's solitude was not simply a physical state, but a profound mental discipline. To walk alone means to accept silence not as emptiness, but as a canvas where the mind paints the sharpest pictures. In that silence, distractions dissolve. The swirling doubts, the fleeting fears, the restless noise of the world, they all lose their power. What remains is a focus so clear and so deep that every thought becomes purposeful, every movement deliberate. He understood that the sword was not only forged in battle, but also in the quiet moments when the warrior confronts himself without flinching. This internal duel is harsher than any clash of blades because it strips away illusion and forces you to face your true self. Musashi's solitude was his training hall, his place of meditation, his battlefield beyond the physical. It was here that he honed not just technique, but the spirit needed to prevail in any circumstance. We live in a time where silence is often feared, where being alone is confused with being lonely. But Musashi's example reminds us that solitude is a rare gift, one that strengthens our mind, clarifies our purpose, and sharpens our will. When you embrace solitude, you become a master of your own inner world. And that mastery translates to everything you do, whether in the chaos of life's battles or the quiet moments where decisions shape your destiny. "Hush!" came the low voice where the commander anchored his men to misery. To walk alone, then, is not to be isolated, but to be deeply connected to your own strength, your own truth, and your own path. It is a call to rise above the distractions and find the power that lives within silence. Musashi's journey shows us that the path of solitude is not easy. It demands courage. The courage to face yourself when there is no one else to turn to, no comfort to hide behind. The world often teaches us to seek validation, to lean on others for approval and guidance. But Musashi chose a different way. He chose to be accountable only to himself, to bear the weight of his decisions alone. This is where true freedom begins. When you no longer depend on the opinions of others to define your worth, you step into a power that is unshakable. This freedom is not chaos, it is discipline. Walking alone means creating order inside the storm. It means building a fortress of calm in the middle of life's unpredictability. Musashi's solitude was a practice of constant self-discipline, an ongoing commitment to grow stronger, wiser, and more focused. Each day alone was an opportunity to sharpen his mind as much as his sword. And this relentless pursuit of mastery in silence and solitude made him legendary. So, when you feel overwhelmed by the noise of the world, remember Musashi. Remember that sometimes the greatest strength is found not in the crowd, but in the quiet places within yourself. To walk alone is not to be lost. It is to be found. Found in your purpose, your resilience, and your truth. It is in this solitude that you build the foundation for a life lived with intention, courage, and honor. Musashi's solitude was also a path to profound self-discovery. When you walk alone, there are no distractions to hide behind, no voices to blame, no crowd to follow. It is just you and the raw truth of your existence. In that space, Musashi learned to listen deeply, not just to the world around him, but to the subtle whispers of his own spirit. This kind of listening requires patience and honesty, qualities forged through solitude. He knew that without understanding yourself, no victory is truly possible. The battles outside are only reflections of the battles within. Every weakness you deny, every fear you ignore, becomes a crack in your armor. Solitude forces you to confront these cracks head-on. It is in this confrontation that real growth happens. Musashi walked alone because he knew that the warrior who cannot master himself will never master his enemies. Today we often seek quick answers, easy fixes, or distractions to avoid being alone with our thoughts. But Musashi's life reminds us that true strength comes from embracing the uncomfortable, from staring down our fears in the quiet. Solitude becomes the forge where we temper our resolve, sharpen our awareness, and build the character necessary to face life's battles with unwavering courage. So I ask you, what are you avoiding in the noise? What truths are you afraid to face in the silence? Musashi's path shows us that walking alone is not a curse but a blessing, a sacred space where the warrior within is born and made unbreakable. Musashi's life was a testament to the idea that solitude sharpens not only the sword, but the mind and spirit as well. When you isolate yourself from the distractions of the world, you allow space for reflection, for strategy, and for growth. Musashi did not seek solitude because he wanted to escape, but because he understood it was the only way to truly prepare for the battles life would bring. His time alone was his workshop, where he crafted not just techniques, but a philosophy. A way of living that embraced discipline, awareness, and relentless self-improvement. It's easy to be swayed by the opinions and expectations of others. It's easy to lose yourself in the crowd and forget what you truly stand for. But Musashi's example challenges us to step back from the noise and find our own voice. Solitude becomes a mirror, reflecting who we are and who we must become. When you walk alone, you are forced to answer difficult questions. What is your purpose? What are your weaknesses? Where must you grow? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary if you want to live with meaning and strength. Musashi teaches us that the greatest warriors are not those who fight the loudest battles, but those who prepare in silence, who sharpen their minds when no one is watching. His solitude was a discipline, a sacred practice that shaped every victory and every lesson he learned. and that is why his legacy endures, because he mastered himself first, and then the world around him. Musashi's solitude was a rebellion against complacency. He understood that to remain stagnant was to lose the edge, and to lose the edge was to invite defeat. When you walk alone, you strip away the comfort of excuses and distractions. You face the raw truth of your own limitations and decide moment by moment whether you will overcome them. This is a lonely path, yes, but it is also the only path to true strength. In solitude, Musashi learned the art of patience. The world outside moves fast, filled with noise and instant gratification, but the path to mastery is slow and deliberate. It demands that you endure long hours of training, endless repetitions, and quiet reflection. There is no shortcut. Musashi's solitary walks, his meditations, and his disciplined practice were all part of this process. He understood that the warrior's journey is not about quick wins, but about forging a spirit that can endure any challenge. This is the power of solitude. It teaches us to be comfortable with discomfort. It teaches us to face our fears without flinching and to keep moving forward when the world tries to pull us back. Musashi's life reminds us that walking alone is not weakness, but a choice to grow stronger, sharper, and more resilient than ever before. Musashi's solitude was also his greatest teacher in humility. When you walk alone, there is no place to hide from your mistakes or weaknesses. No one is there to cover for you or to take the blame. You stand exposed before your own conscience, and in that exposure, you find the chance to grow. Musashi knew that humility was the foundation of true mastery, because without it, arrogance blinds the warrior to his own faults. He spent his years wandering, training and reflecting, not because he sought glory, but because he sought truth. Truth about the way of the sword, the way of life, and the way of self. His solitude allowed him to peel away the layers of ego and illusion that trap most men. It was in that lonely silence that he saw himself clearly, and only then could he begin to improve honestly and relentlessly. We live in a world obsessed with appearances, where being surrounded by others is often mistaken for success. But Musashi's life is a reminder that the deepest work is done in solitude, where no one is watching except yourself. When you dare to walk alone, you take the hardest, most rewarding step toward becoming the strongest version of yourself. Musashi's solitude was a silent declaration of independence, a refusal to be controlled by the expectations or fears of others. He understood that the path to true freedom begins with the courage to stand alone, to trust in your own judgment when no one else believes in you. This is not the freedom of recklessness, but the freedom of discipline and clarity. When you walk alone, you learn to rely on your own strength, your own wisdom, and your own resilience. There are no shortcuts, no easy answers. It's a path that demands constant vigilance and an unyielding commitment to self-improvement. Musashi's life shows us that this kind of solitude is a gift, a forge where the soul is tempered and the spirit hardened. In a world that fears loneliness, he embraced it as a source of power. His solitude was a place of growth where distractions fell away and only what was essential remained. It is in this space that the warrior is born, not from the noise of the crowd, but from the quiet focus of a mind sharpened by reflection and resolve. So when life pushes you into solitude, remember Musashi's example. Don't fear the silence or the solitude. Instead, see it as an opportunity, a chance to sharpen your mind, strengthen your spirit, and prepare yourself for the battles that lie ahead. As we stand here today, caught in the noise and chaos of the world, it's easy to forget the strength that lies in walking alone. But Musashi's life reminds us that solitude is not a place of weakness or despair. It is a sanctuary of power. It is in those quiet moments away from the crowd that we discover who we truly are. When the distractions fade, when the opinions cease, and when the world falls silent, you are left face to face with yourself. the most important battle you will ever fight. The path of solitude is not an easy one. It demands courage beyond measure. It demands the willingness to confront your fears, your doubts, your failures without running away. But it also offers something precious, a chance to rise above the noise and become the person you are meant to be. Like Musashi, you can use solitude to sharpen your mind, strengthen your spirit, and forge a life of meaning and purpose. So do not fear being alone. Embrace it. Let it be your greatest teacher and your fiercest ally. Know that walking alone is not walking lost. It is walking with intention, with clarity, with unshakable resolve. In solitude, you find your true power. In solitude, you become unstoppable. Today, I challenge you to step into that quiet space, to stand tall in your own truth, and to walk your path alone if you must. Because when you do, you will discover a strength that no one can take from you. A strength that lasts beyond battles, beyond doubts, beyond time itself.